Warning, this game is a horror porn. This game contains disturbing content that's not suitable for most audiences. No matter how hot the guys are, you're still gonna get traumatized. Also, it's only meant for a mature audience, so viewers' discretion is advised. Hello everybody and welcome back to Boyfriend to Death. Today we are going to be playing Sano's route. And heck, I'm actually excited to see where this one goes. Let's get into it, shall we? I guess I'll go to the nightclub. I put on a nice outfit, revealing in all the right places, and I went out for the night. After waiting in line, I walked into the club. The music was pretty loud, but I pushed past the waves of people to the bar. It seemed like I ended up in the front row of the bartender every night these days. Rum and coke, please. A bit early for rum, don't you think? I looked over to my side and noticed a man stirring his drink next to me. Oh gosh, yeah, I guess you're right. Oh, he smiled at me. I'm not here to judge you. Oh, sorry, it's just been a rough week. It happens to the best of us. I didn't know this guy, but he seemed nice enough. My name's Lionel. It's nice to meet you. My name's Sano. He took my hand and gently rubbed his thumb across the top of my skin. His hands were cold but firm. I looked up at him and he looked right into my eyes. That gray steel color piercing right through me. What's wrong? Nothing, I'm just wondering something. Ask. Well, what are you doing here alone? Can you tell me a little more about yourself, or do you want to dance with me? Yeah, I guess I wanted him to tell me a bit more about himself. Huh? Why would you want to know more about me? Well, I'm not that interesting. You look like you have a story to tell. Not much to say. I'm going to school to become a doctor. Whoa, you must be pretty smart. Sano shrugged his shoulder. Intelligence is relative. I'm just doing something I like. This sounds pretty awesome. Sano looked down at his watch and he looked at me. It's getting late. I better head back. Oh, so soon? Yeah, med classes tomorrow. Do you want to grab a coffee first? Sure, I understand. It was nice meeting you, Sano. Guess you have to be a spoil sport if you want to be a doctor. No, I'm not gonna be mean to him. You want to grab a coffee first? Not this time, but I'll give you my phone number. We can go out later. Sano slid off his bar stool and walked into the crowd. I watched Sano leave inside. I got up to dance by myself and bumped into someone. Hey, you alright? I didn't even see you there. Oh, I'm fine. I thought you just left. Huh? He turned his head and looked in the direction that Sano walked in. Oh, you were just talking to Sano, right? My name's Akira. He's my twin brother. He flashed me a cute smile and I smiled back. He looked just like Sano. I gotta head back to the DJ booth. Maybe we can play together some other time. Akira smiled at me and rubbed his hand across my chin. That might be fun. I'll wait for Akira. I waited for Akira to get off of work. He seemed like a nice guy. Whoa, did you wait for me? Is that weird? Akira shook his head and put his arm around me. Nope, I just wasn't sure that you would. I'm off now, so let's go do something fun, huh? I nodded and followed him off into the night. Akira wasted no time once we got to his house. Oh my god! If y'all want to see the uncensored version of this is gonna be on my Patreon. Just letting you guys know. Oh dear god. It was still dark out when I opened my eyes. I could feel Akira's arms around me as I poked him. Where's your bathroom? Huh? Akira made a motion. Down the hall. He let me go and buried his head under the blankets. Oh, I'm sure I can find my own way. I picked up my shirt and slipped on my underwear as I exited his room. I walked into the dark hallway and groped the wall. I could feel a light switch, but I felt a doorknob. The door slowly opened and I was hit with a smell. It smelled like rotting meat. You shouldn't have done that. A hand covered my mouth as someone leaned into me, his eyes almost glowing through the darkness. Yes, again. I felt a needle push into the skin of my neck and I fell into the ground. It was dark when I woke up. I shifted my wrist to see if I could move, but something stopped me. It felt like leather and it held me down to whatever I was leaning on. Hello? I called into the darkness. No! The light was bright and it flashed into my eyes and I could barely see anything. I saw an arm in the darkness. I pulled the light out of my face and into the rest of the room. Where am I? You're in my medical bay. I watched as a tall man leaned over me. What's going on? Sano leaned down on a chair near me. You wanna know what's happening? I'm gonna be frank with you. Sano looked at a clipboard and put it on his lap. I'm going to examine you, and you won't survive the process. It took a moment to think about what Sano just said to me. He can't be serious. What? I kept my eyes on him, but he said nothing. Sano took a seat near me. So tell me your medical history. Any genetic disorder you might have. He was acting as if this was all normal. Oh gosh, I'll answer his question. I answered his question the best I could. What else could I do? Sano brushed his fingers through my hair and looked at me. Good. His quiet voice and soft touch would have calmed me down if it weren't for the coldness of his gaze. It was almost inhuman. I felt a shiver down my spine. Please, don't kill me. Sano leaned in and rubbed his gloved thumb across my face. No promises. Rest. Something flashed in his hand. Was that a syringe? He pushed it into my neck before I could say a word. My vision blurred as my head rolled to the side. You need your sleep. Sano. I turned my head to the side as I woke up. The grogginess faded pretty quickly. I tried to look around the room and spotted Sano. He was in the corner, calmly looking through a book. I bit my lip. I guess I'll leave him alone. I turned my head away and took a deep breath. I should just leave him alone. He's trying to kill me anyways. Sano stood up and grabbed my arm. Sano forced my arm down the table. Hey, what are you doing? Sano looked over at me with narrowed eyes and pulled the strap harder. Sano pulled out a needle and tapped it. I gulped. I didn't know what was in the needle. What's in the needle? Device a special kind of general anesthesia. What does it do? It causes relaxation of the muscles and temporary paralysis. It also helps enhance memory of the surgery. What does that mean? Sano grabbed my face and touched it with his gloved hand. My angel. It means... He gripped my face harder and leaned in. You will remember every caress of my knife on your skin. I started to tremble under his hand as he pulled slowly away from me. He wanted me to remember what he was doing to me? Sano tapped my arm and pushed up his glasses. Smell veins. Have you been drinking enough water? Sano looked over his glasses at me in an accusatory fashion. I guess I've been drinking too much. I've been drinking... Sano nodded and looked down at my arm again. That will do. I'll find another spot. He moved around my body and gloved his hand. I felt his cold fingers on my skin as he checked for veins. Sano smiled at me. What is it? You're cold. I always am. Here. Sano seemed to find a vein as he injected me with the anesthesia. Sano watched me as my breath slowed down. How are you feeling? I couldn't say anything. I just looked at him. Can't talk, huh? Sano turned my head towards him and started to cut into my skin. It hurt like any deep cut would, but I couldn't scream. I couldn't even look away. Sano cut into my forearm and opened it up. It's not unheard of, you know, examining live people for scientific purposes. What was he talking about? Was that what he was doing this for? Sano pulled the tendons in my arms out of the skin and looked at them. Spending too much time on the computer line. Don't call me out like that, Sano! A sadistic smile graced Sano's lips as he yanked the tendons harder. I stared at Sano, begging him with my eyes to let me go. Sano looked up at me and tilted his head to the side. Had enough? I went to the knob, but all I could do was stare at him. Sano stood up and put his hand out. An odd blue light and letters I couldn't understand floated around his hand. What does that say? I looked at my wrist and it seemed to fix considerably. That's in Japanese. Sano looked over at me and patted my head. Sano bandaged the rest of the wounds carefully. I watched him unstrap my legs and felt a bit of relief. He walked to his desk and took a seat, writing in his notebook casually. It was done with me, for now, so I remained motionless. I started to get the feeling back in my body and pulled my legs up. Sano looked up at the movement. That's a good idea. You wouldn't want to get DVT now. Let's see. You can rub my legs if you want, or I think that's the least of my worries. I mean, I do not want to get my relationship too high with him, I guess. Like, remembering what happened with Strayed. God damn it, Strayed. I think that's the least of my worries. Sano laughed and looked back at his papers. In this situation, I would say that's valid. He spoke to me so casually. It was almost like talking to a friend. But I knew better than that. Oh gosh. I'm tired. Or does your brother know what you're doing? I guess the latter. Of course he does. And he's okay with this? It doesn't bother me if I'm working. And I don't question his choices in adult fun time partners. You guys are weird. Really? That sounds like normal sibling behavior. Yeah, that's true. If you both were murderers. Never said he wasn't one. I gulped. Maybe I shouldn't talk to him anymore. I didn't want to know what other skeletons he had in his closet. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep the best I could, knowing Sano was watching me. It was hard to sleep. It was really getting warm in this room. Maybe I should try to do something else? I looked up at the corner of the room. Sano was in the corner, lighting something on fire in the furnace. Let's see. I guess I'll ask for something to help put me asleep. I couldn't sleep. It was just getting hotter. Excuse me. Sano walked over to me and leaned over me. What is it? I can't sleep and I'm tired. I have work to do. I can't attend to you right now. Sano picked up a needle from a tray and aimed it at my neck. It's not often people trust me to inject them. You don't know what could be in this needle. Sano smirked and injected me. He was right. What if he was just trying to kill me? Wait! Good night. It was so hot when I woke up. I could barely breathe. Are you awake? I opened my eyes and looked at the man across the room. Sano was looking at me with a blue fire reflecting on his glasses. What are you doing? I started to cough and felt weak. I'm turning up the heat. As he spoke, I felt the heat bounce off the walls. I regret speaking. I watched the haunting blue flames bounce off his hands and into the room. I could see why the walls were concrete now. Are you giving up on me, Lionel? I will calm down. I was scared, but I didn't want to panic anymore. I bit my lip and tried to calm myself. Sano watched me and got closer. His hand was still ablaze. Nothing to say? Sano grabbed my leg and burned my skin. Still nothing? I will bite my lip. I didn't want to cry. He didn't look like he was in the mood to hear it. Sano looked at me and pulled his hand away from my legs. I closed my eyes and laid back. I felt the room closing in. I could feel myself passing out again. I opened my eyes and looked around. It had cooled down from the hellfire earlier. Sano must have opened the door for a while I was passed out. I could see Sano in the corner, looking at some melted things on his desk. I'll catch my breath. Sano was not done with me. I could tell by the way he was acting. I turned my head away from him and closed my eyes tight. Maybe I could get my breathing under control. It was still pretty hot in the room, but it was cooling down now. I spaced out for a few minutes, looking at the ceiling. It was quiet. I narrowed my eyes and turned my head to Sano. He was sitting, but his head was down on his desk. Was he sleeping? I guess I'll check on him. I looked at the straps around my wrists and tugged at them. I grimaced as I yanked them out of the straps. It was a bit too painful to just yank my arms out like that, but now I was free. I smiled to myself and looked around. I walked over to him and looked at his sleeping form. Maybe he was tired from using his magic. I'll leave him alone. I decided to leave him alone. I really didn't want to bother him. I pulled my arms out of the restraint. I smiled brightly. Maybe if I was fast enough, I could slip out of the room. I walked over to the door and jiggled the doorknob. It was locked. I would have to go back and check on Sano. Maybe he had the keys. As I turned on my foot, I felt my head hit the door with a loud bang. Trying to get free, huh? No, wait! For what? Sano reeled his hand back and smashed my head against the wall again. It felt like a few hours of dead silence as Sano moved around the room. He didn't even turn on the light. Maybe he was accustomed to working in the dark. I could hear him pull something metal out of one of the drawers. Sano approached and looked at me. He seemed to be studying my facial features. Tell me something, Lionel. I could hear Sano speaking through the darkness and I swallowed hard. You know what prefrontal lobotomy is? I took a hard gulp and opened my mouth to speak, but he stopped me. Basically, you take something like this. Sano picked up an ice pick looking tool and waved it. I saw it glinting in the darkness. And through the eye, I can separate the prefrontal cortex from the other portions of your brain. Why was he telling me this? Sano dragged the tip of the ice pick from my leg and I shuddered. The cold, sharp tip scraped against my skin. It was a very common practice, especially in the late 19th century, since depression and anxiety were considered mental disorders back then. Sano looked at me over his glasses, narrowing his eyes with a grin. So, have you been feeling some anxiety? Maybe you've been depressed. What are you talking about? Sano leaned in and flicked my nose. I'm talking about. He aimed the ice pick at my eye. Trying out this barbaric form of neurosurgery on you. He smirked and tilted his head to the side. Sano pushed the tip of the ice pick into my cheek, digging deep. I let out a small gasp as I felt a drop of blood dripping down my cheek. I want to take care of you after all. I am a doctor. Oh gosh. I guess I've been feeling some anxiety. Really? Sano took a seat, looking at me. Why don't you tell me more about it? I shifted nervously. I was worried that if I didn't choose my words carefully, he'd hurt me. I've been pretty lonely. Seems pretty normal of someone your age to be lonely. Lost connections with people you may have known. School or work taking your time? Is it necessary for you to have friends? Well, I'd like to have friends. Is that why you go to bars and nightclubs to find people to talk to? Well, yeah. Or are you just using seeking friends to cover the rampant alcoholism you possess? Ow! Ow! Maybe a bit of both. At least you're being honest with me. Sano tapped the tip of the ice pick on my leg and smirked. I cringed in pain as a bubble of blood appeared where he was poking. Well, because you were so cooperative, I won't be scrambling your brains. Oh, thank you. Good job. I woke up the next day with my arms straight out, and I looked around. Sano was looking into an extra large needle. There were a few round things in the needle floating gently in the liquid. Morning. What are you doing? I'm growing tired of this game. Sano leaned over me and shook the needle in my face. One more experiment. Sano pushed the needle into my chest, injecting the liquid into me. I screamed loudly as I felt the pressure of the injection in my chest. I looked around, breathing harder, and looked at Sano. What's going on? Don't worry about it. I watched Sano pull some hair clippers and start to shave my head. What are you doing? I started to scream, but the room started to pulse. Everything was moving around. I wasn't even sure what I was seeing anymore. The walls were moving and there was something in the darkness beyond Sano. Sano looked at me, confused. What are you seeing? I don't know. What is this? Oh, has the medicine taken effect? What's going on, Sano? I could feel something cutting through my skull. It didn't hurt anymore. I watched the thing move around the room. Sano? Yes. The room is moving around. Tell me what you're seeing. I don't know. I could feel something scratching in my skull. The scratching! I screamed loudly as I heard something pop in my head. I felt legs walking on my forehead. Oh, new babies. Sano leaned over me and held out a centipede. Thank you. You incubated them well. My scream started to fade as Sano watched the insects crawl on his hand. You had some new babies for Sano! Ah! Alright, this time we're gonna see if we can get the true ending for this, so let's see. I watched as the tall man leaned over me. Let me go! Whatever this is, I'm not interested! Sano reeled back and punched me right in the face. Ow! I could feel the blood leaking out my nose and he forced my head to the side. The blood poured on the table and he kept a gloved hand on my skull. Watch your mouth. I said nothing more as Sano pulled a chair closer and took a seat. I kept my eyes on him but said nothing. Sano took a seat near me. So tell me, your medical history. Any genetic disorders you might have. He was acting as if all this was normal. Oh god, please tell me this isn't your idea of dating. Sano looked at me deadpan. Funny. Sano pulled out a knife and plunged it into my shoulder and twisting the blade? I let out a blood-curdling scream as he twisted. He looked like he wasn't even trying, but the force was pinning me to the table. I'm sure you can use your sense of humor to help yourself soon. Sano ripped the knife from my shoulder. I let out another scream as I breathed hard. Panicking. Blue fire surrounded Sano's hand as he burned the wound shut. Please, shut your mouth. I felt the room spinning at the searing pain entering my shoulder. My eyes rolled into the back of my head and I passed out. Sano pulled out a needle and tapped it. I gulped. I didn't know what was in the needle. Oh gosh, I'm gonna give him a dirty look. I shot the dirtiest look I could at Sano. He was probably gonna kill me anyway, so what was I going to lose? Sano tapped my arm and pushed up his glasses. Small veins. Have you been drinking enough water? Sano looked over his glasses at me in an accusatory fashion. I've been drinking too much. I've been drinking. Sano looked over and nodded down at my arm again. This will do. I'll find another spot. He moved around my body and ungloved his hand. I felt his cold fingers on my skin as he checked for veins. Ugh. Sano smiled at me. What is it? You're cold. I always am. Here. Sano seemed to find a vein as he injected me with the anesthesia. Sano watched me as my breath slowed down. How are you feeling? I couldn't say anything. I could just look at him. Can't talk, huh? Sano turned my head towards him and started to cut into my skin. It hurt like any deep cut would, but I couldn't scream. I couldn't even look away. Sano cut into my forearm and opened it up. It's not unheard of, you know. Examining live people for scientific purposes. What was he talking about? Was that what he was doing this for? Sano pulled the tendons in my arm out of my skin and looked at them. Spending too much time on the computer line. Again, don't call me out! Sadistic smile graced Sano's lips as he yanked the tendons harder. I stared at Sano, begging him with my eyes to let me go. Sano looked up at me and tilted his head to the side. Had enough. I wanted to nod, but all I could do was stare at him. Sano stood up and put his hand out. And all blue light and letters I couldn't understand floated around his hand. Oh, magical stuff. Oh, I looked at my wrist and it seemed to fix considerably. And magical Japanese words. Sano looked over at me and patted my head. Sano bandaged the rest of the wounds carefully. I watched him unstrap my legs and felt a bit of relief. He walked to his desk and took a seat, writing in his notebook casually. He was done with me for now, so I remained motionless. I started to get a feeling back in my body and I put my legs up. Sano looked up at the movement. That's a good idea. You wouldn't want to get DVT now. I think that's the least of my worries. Sano laughed and looked back at his papers. In this situation, I would say that's valid. He spoke to me so casually. It was almost as if I was talking to a friend. But I knew better than that. Where's your brother? Huh? Did you want to talk to him? He's the reason why I'm here. The reason why you're here is because you're nosy. It was an accident. I was trying to use the bathroom like heck. Sure. I was just using the bathroom. Sano stood up and opened the door. I heard heavier footsteps enter the room and lean over me. I'm sorry? Oh, hey, Lionel. That's where you went. You have to let me go, Akira. I'm pretty sure I'm not in charge here. He's kidding, right? Oh, God. You're joking, right? Oh, you know if I was joking. Akira kept a deadpan look on his face as he walked over to me. Now, this situation isn't something to joke about. But what? There's no way out of this, Lionel. He doesn't play nice. And who am I to step on my brother's pee-pee, huh? Nighty-night, kitten. You call me kitten and you leave me alone? Akira walked away from me and turned off the lights in the room. He really was just gonna leave me here. My dear God! Anyway, the rest of the choices here are more or less the same, so hey, we're just gonna be skipping ahead. Was he sleeping? Oh my God, I can actually try to escape now. God damn it. I looked at the straps around my wrists and tugged at them. I grimaced as I yanked them out of the straps. It was a bit painful to just yank my arms out like that, but I was free. I smiled to myself and looked around. I rolled to the ground and stretched out a bit. My body felt good enough to try to escape. I crept over to the door and put my ear on it. I couldn't hear anything, so I touched the doorknob and opened it. Morning. What are you doing up? Akira had a gun aimed at me and he didn't look like he was in a mood for a game. I will tell him the truth. I was trying to escape. Akira let out a sigh and moved his gun, motioning at a table. I walked back to the table and sat on the edge. Akira wandered over to the table and looked at me with a stern look on his face. Don't run. It's not the best plan. You don't want Sano hunting you. I don't want to die. You shouldn't have snooped around this house. Akira ran his hand through his hair and sighed loudly. I just wanted to pee! I just wanted to pee! This all started because I needed to pee! I didn't mean to! I was just looking for the bathroom, okay? Exactly! Well, I guess looking for the pooper landed you right here. You're his now. Oh! Apparently, if I need to poop, I belong to Sano! Great! Akira pushed off the table. Oh gosh, darn it. Wait! Akira turned on his heel to me. What's up? Nothing. Akira walked back to me and put a heavy hand on my head. Maybe he'll let you go. I've seen it happen before. Just try not to be, a little poo to him. Was that all I could hope for in this situation? Okay. Akira looked at the restraints. I forgot. I gotta put these back on you. Sano might get mad if he saw them off. I nodded. I didn't want to be strapped down. I trusted Akira's judgment. Akira leaned over me and strapped down my arms. That okay? I nodded a bit as he tugged my arms to make sure it was on. Stay put, okay? I nodded and he put his hand on my face. Thank you. Akira turned away again and walked off. The door slammed with a heavy clank and I laid back down. It felt like hours of dead silence as Sano moved around the room. He didn't even turn on the light. Maybe he was just accustomed to working in the dark. I could hear him pull something metal out of one of the drawers. Sano approached and looked at me. He seemed to be studying my facial expressions. Tell me something, Lionel. I could hear Sano speaking through the darkness and I swallowed hard. Do you know what a prefrontal lobotomy is? I took a hard gulp and opened my mouth to speak, but he stopped me. Basically, it takes something like this. Sano lifted up the nice pick-looking tool and waved it. I saw it glinting in the darkness. And through the eye, I could separate the prefrontal cortex from the other portions of your brain. Why was he telling me this? Sano dragged the tip of the ice pick up to my leg and I shuddered. The cold, sharp tip scraped against my skin. It was a very common practice, especially during the 19th century, since depression and anxiety were considered mental disorders back then. Sano looked at me over his glasses, narrowing his eyes with a grin. So, have you been feeling some anxiety? Maybe you've been depressed? Where's Akira? You're very interested in my brother. I shifted my legs and stared at him. Who wouldn't be? He's a really nice guy. Sano grabbed my neck hard, pushing down my throat. Don't mess with my younger brother. Sano pushed me back and left the room. Sano left the room again and I took a soft breath. I heard the door click open and shrunk back on the table. Hey Lionel. I couldn't help but perk up when I saw Akira. I sat at the edge of the table. Akira looked at me and unstrapped the belts around my limbs. I looked up at him appreciatively and rubbed my wrist. Are you checking on me? Akira snorted loudly and crossed his arms. No. Why would I be doing that? Akira paused. Okay, I am. Sue me. Akira held out a drink for me. It looked like a food supplement and I reached for it. Thank you. I felt my stomach growl loudly. Sure thing. I unsealed the drink and sipped it. It felt nice in my throat and refreshing. It's all we had. That's not snake food. Akira smirked. Do you have a pet? Akira snored again and shook his head. That depends on what you mean by pet. Because honestly, you're... never mind. How are you holding up? I wish I could say better. I'll scoot closer to him. I scooted closer to Akira and looked down at my toes. He put his hand on my head and kept it there for a moment. Lonely? Of course. I mean, your brother isn't. Cuddler? Nah, not really. I'm the one that likes squeezing. Ah! Yeah, I remember. I put my hand around my neck where Akira choked me the night before. Akira laughed and took a deep breath. Think about that, huh? I blushed and turned away. Maybe? I looked around the room. How do you ask someone if they did torture too? Akira shook his head. I'm glad he caught my drift. Not really my thing. I'm a contract killer. Akira pulled the gun out of his holster and aimed it away from me. The gun... it makes it less personal. Easier for me to kill when I take the humanity out of it. Oh. I'm still a killer though. I'm not making any excuses. Just giving you a reason. Yeah. I felt my nose tingle and my eyes water. Akira, what is it? I finally turned to him with my eyes watering. My tears flooded down my face. I don't want to die. I tossed myself on him and he patted my back. Shh, don't cry. He let out a nervous chuckle. You make me cry. I felt his arms wrap around me and squeeze me tight. You really do like to squeeze, don't you? He felt cold, but there was a welcome in this warm room. It's in my nature. I could feel Akira's arms releasing me. I didn't want him to leave me alone. Don't go. I wasn't gonna go just yet, but... No, I mean... Akira looked over at me and arched an eyebrow. I played with my hands and threw myself at him. I pushed my lips against his and he caught me. I could feel his tongue slip into my mouth and he pushed hard against me. Akira's hand makes their way to my shoulder and he pinned me to the table. Oh my god! We can't. I want to. Please. I feel like I'm going crazy. Seeing you makes me feel better. You're kidding, right? That just makes you more crazy. I wrapped my legs around Akira's waist and he looked at me. Maybe I'm okay with a little crazy. Damn it, Lionel! Oh god. So clearly this is gonna be a dirty scene and hey, I don't need to remind you guys where you want to go to see that. Akira gave me a handkerchief. Thank you. I sat up slowly, realizing I was smiling. I looked down at the cloth. Sorry. Don't worry about it. I'll come back, okay? Really? Yeah. Akira slid off the table and put his hand over my chin gently. Don't give up. I watched Akira leave and gripped the handkerchief hard onto my chest. I could hear the sounds of people talking in the room. I couldn't make out a word of it, however. It sounded like it was Japanese. I shifted my head to the side and opened my eyes. I could see Akira and Sano hovering over his desk. Sano turned his head to me and nodded towards me. Good morning, Lionel. Hi. My voice felt small as Akira walked over and put his hand on my head. It felt comforting, but his eyes were concerned. What's going on? Don't worry. I'll be here with you, okay? I didn't like the sound of that. Let's begin. Well, long story short, guys, I nuzzly wuzzly on both of the bulgy wolgies. If you guys want to know what happened, well, do I have to say for the third time? It's on my Patreon. What are you doing here? God damn, that was fun. I looked up at Akira as he leaned down and nuzzled me a bit. I need some water. I'll be back, okay? Okay. I watched Akira walk out of the room and Sano looked at me. Now that he's gone, Sano walked over and jammed a device in my mouth, keeping it open. He quickly strapped my arms down as my legs flailed uselessly. I started to panic as he pulled out a container. What was he doing? Seems like my brother likes you. I still can't let you go, however. Sano held up something that looked like a monster centipede above my head and I started to struggle. Are we straight up doing Tokyo Ghoul right now? I bred the small umukade myself. Sano dripped it into my mouth and I could feel it crawling into my throat. If anything was learned here, is that if you can take Akira's pee-pee in your throat, you won't be throwing up this little one. I started to panic. Where was Akira? I could feel the centipede crawl up into my skull, the pincers ripping through flesh and bone. It was a blinding pain, like a hot knife through my flesh. The pain seared through my head as everything started to feel limp. I couldn't move a muscle and Sano put his hand out. My hand moved on its own. Sano unhooked my restraints and my hand took his gently as he helped me up. I couldn't control my limbs. Are you okay, little one? I could feel my head nodding as I looked up at him. Yes, master. I'm okay. Sano leaned in and nuzzled me softly, but I couldn't feel it. I was just watching as he did this. I'm so happy, master. Now I can be with you. I couldn't stop my mouth from speaking. As you can be with me now. This seemed like a suitable container. Nope, I did not want this. I heard the door opening and my body turned to look at Akira in the doorway. Hello, Akira. No, Akira, it's not me. Oh, hey, you're up. Akira, help me. I'm up now. I decided to let Lionel go. Seriously? That's awesome. Akira walked over happy and hugged me. Let's get you some clothes, huh? Good idea. Akira, please. I couldn't scream for him and I couldn't help my body from getting up and walking. I was a bystander in my own actions. My head turned to Sano, who was smirking. I'll be back, Sano. I couldn't escape him. So there's this one other ending I want to get, which is the Sano good end. And the way to get this is that you gotta get all the right choices for Sano and not see Akira at all. So, hey, let's get into it, shall we? What are you doing? Sano looked up and walked over, taking a seat closer to me. I'm just looking over these papers. I rubbed my wrist against the leather restraint. I couldn't make any sense of this. What did he want? Why'd you choose me? Sano looked up from the paperwork. He sighed. It was random. It always is. You just happened to be alone. I guess it makes sense. That would depend on your definition of sense. There's no making sense of what a serial killer does, Lionel. My eyes widened as he spoke. A serial killer? Sano, please. I don't want to die. Sano ran his fingers through my hair and shook his head. No one does. I have no intention of letting you leave, however. Sano stood up and looked at me one more time before strapping my arm down. Sano pulled out a needle and tapped it. We're gonna be skipping ahead to some of the other choices that we haven't picked yet. You wouldn't want to get DVT now. I could run around more if you let my arms go. I waggled my eyebrows and he laughed. Nice try. It was worth a try. I suppose so. It's brave of you to joke with your kidnapper. I didn't think of that. Because I'm so personable and nice. As much as a black mamba. The cold look on Sano's face broke and he laughed. You're not wrong. What does that mean? Don't worry about it. Huh. Well, so about black mambas. Are you really that curious? That is why I asked. Ever heard of Nagas before? In myth, I know they're like fox boys running around. Well, they're not myths. Yeah, right, Doc. And I'm a three-toed sloth. I am one. You're kidding me, right? Sano opened his mouth to a black inside and sharp fangs. I'm not a vampire. My eyes widened. Glad I left you speechless. Whoa, yeah. Good to know. I leaned my head back. Maybe that was enough questions for the day. It was hard to sleep. It was getting really warm in this room. Maybe I should try to do something else? I looked up at the corner of the room. Sano was in the corner, lighting something on fire in the furnace. Huh. So, what is it like being a Naga? I watched Sano walk over to me. That's like asking you what it's like to be normal. True. So, I don't know if I can compare it to anything. Do you shed? Yeah, it's really itchy. Sounds like a pain. Yeah, I'm lucky I get to pick it off. That's... Not gonna lie, it sounds really gross. It's like picking a scab. Sometimes it's really gratifying, especially when it comes off in one piece. I could feel myself staring at him for a moment. There was a suppressed smile on Sano's face. Dude, what? Nah, never mind. What? You don't want to know what it's like to peel off a full-body scab? No, stop talking about it! Sano? Huh? Why do you do these experiments? Curiosity. About people? Generally. They're different from demons. How so? Most demons walk that behind the line. We'd rather be killing. Humans are different. Are we? Most people who come through here cry and die. Sounds a little... pathetic. Cold. I shrugged a shoulder. That won't give you the satisfaction of letting you see me cry. Sounds like a challenge. Sano patted my face. Look forward to it. He smirked and walked back to the furnace. I hope it doesn't get too hot for you. Maybe I like the heat. I shut my eyes and fall asleep quickly. It was so hot when I woke up. I could barely breathe. Are you awake? I opened my eyes and looked at a man across the room. Sano was looking at me with a blue fire reflecting on his glasses. What are you doing? I started to cough and felt weak. I'm turning up the heat. As he spoke, I felt the heat bounce off the walls. I regret speaking. I watched the haunting blue flames bounce off his hands and into the room. I could see why the walls were concrete now. Are you giving up on me, Lionel? I won't give you the satisfaction. Burn me alive if you have to. I was starting to lose my train of thought as Sano came closer. He held the fire right by my face. I could feel how hot it was by how close it was. You want to be burned alive? I like the heat. I licked my lips at him. Sano narrowed his eyes as he placed his hand on my side. I let out a shrill scream as it burned my skin. Even through the pain, I was still entranced by the otherworldly flame. I'm gonna moan! Excuse me! I moan! I let out a soft moan as I felt his hands against my bare skin. I was starting to get used to the feeling of fire. Maybe I was getting delusional from the heat. Maybe I'm getting delusional from Sano's hotness. Sano. Sano started to pant. He took his hands off of me and pulled back. Sano was breathing hard and pushed his hair away from his eye. Oh my god, you're beautiful. Your eye. Sano let the fringe fall down and looked away. It's really pretty. I couldn't talk anymore as I closed my eyes as the heat pulsed in my head. I opened my eyes and looked around. It had cooled down from the hellfire earlier. Sano must have opened the door for a while I was passed out. I could see Sano in the corner looking at some melted things on the desk. Fire, huh? Haven't you had enough? Probably. I was just thinking about the flames. Sano stood up and walked over. What about them? Is that magic too? Sano dug around in his rolling tray and removed his gloves. Of course it is. It wasn't an illusion. Sano made a motion towards my burnt sides. Clearly. Clearly? I have a solve. Do you want it? I will swallow my pride. Yes, please. Good. I wouldn't want you getting an infection. Sano put the cream on his hands and rubbed them together. He walked between my legs and leaned over. I watched as he placed his hands on my sides. I couldn't help but gasp. Cold, huh? I could use some coldness right now. I answered with an awkward smile. He moved his hands along my sides. I felt myself arcing back. Hurts? I can handle it. I bit my lip as he rubbed his hands on my sides. It was hard to concentrate on the cooling effect with him rubbing me like that. Sano. I felt a moan escape my lips as he looked up at me. What is it? Feels good. I could see Sano panting again. Oh my god, he's blushing. I never thought I would see Sano blushing. He took his hands off me and put his hands over his mouth. This isn't... done. He rushed back to his desk and busied himself with something else. His face was bright red. You're actually kind of cute sometimes. Sano looked over at me. Shut up. Oh my god, Sano's a tsundere! Oh no! I spaced out for a few minutes, looking at the ceiling. It was quiet. I narrowed my eyes and turned my head to Sano. He was sitting, but his head was down on his desk. Was he sleeping? I'm gonna check on him. I looked at the straps around my wrists and tugged at them. I grimaced as I yanked them out of the straps. It was painful to just yank my hands out like that, but I was free. I smiled to myself, then looked around. I walked over to him, looking at his sleeping form. Maybe he was tired from using his magic. Get into his lap? Oh no! Oh no! Sano looked at the bloody mess he made of me as he made a sound off the side of his mouth. One moment. He walked over to his desk and put his glasses back on. On his way back, he picked up a cloth and some alcohol. What are you doing? Sano looked at me. Cleaning your wounds. Isn't that what people do? Sano dabbed my cuts lightly. I was starting to realize how much it hurt. Just in case you guys were wondering what you just missed, I just went to town on Sano. So yeah, that's what happened. I took in a sharp breath as he touched the alcohol on my skin. I guess you're right. I cleaned my tools, but it's better safe than sorry. He cleaned the rest of my wounds and wrapped them with a gauze. Thank you. Don't worry about it. Sano stood up and put his hands on my face. Sleep. I leaned up and kissed him goodnight, and he closed the door behind him. I moved my arms around and stretched. I felt sore, but better than ever. There was a white lab coat on top of me, and I looked at it. Did Sano leave this for me? I smiled and held it close. He even smelled like him. I pulled it around me and covered myself, looking around. He wasn't here. I felt a bit lonely without him, but I stood up and sat at the edge of the med table. The lab coat around my shoulder gave me comfort. I rubbed my arms inside. When was he coming back? I jumped when I heard the door swing open and looked over. Sano! Good morning, Lionel. I got off my spot and watched Sano drop a large duffel bag on the ground. I have to talk to you about something. I walked closer and looked up to him. What is it? I have to confess. Normally I wouldn't do what we have. You don't have adult fun times and victims? Sano nodded and put his hands on my face. I want you to help me. What do you mean? Sano picked up the duffel bag and dumped out the person inside on the table. He seemed curious about living things, just like me. Sano strapped the person down the table and leaned on the edge. I could feel my heart racing as he held out a knife for me. Do you want to learn? Oh hell yeah, why would I refuse this? Heck yeah! I reached for a knife and took it from him. What are you gonna teach me? Sano guided me to the table and stood behind me. Let's start with an incision. That person started to wake up and looked at me. What are you doing? Ignore it. All I could think of was Sano's body pushed against mine as he held my shaking hand steadily. I turned my head a bit to look at him for a moment. What's wrong? My heart was racing, but my thoughts couldn't be more clear. I want to do this with Sano. I'm so excited. The whites of Sano's eyes turned black, and he panted softly. I am too. I kissed Sano on the lips gently as I pushed the knife into the person's skin. They let out a shrill scream that echoed off the walls. It felt like cutting meat. I love you. Oh my god. That was a very twisted ending, but I liked it. I think it was a good way to end the series. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed the Boyfriend to Death series. Anyway, I hope you all have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. This is Lionel, signing off. Ciao.